year after year after year. Trey Hendrickson, when he first signed with the Bengals, it was a very mid deal. It didn't really matter a lot because he wasn't elite at the time. He had back-to-back good seasons with the Saints and then came in with the Bengals and got his first Pro Bowl and has, I believe, gotten a Pro Bowl every single year since coming over to Cincinnati. And in that first season with Cincinnati, they made the Super Bowl. And since then, it's been, okay, we'll push you back one more year and one more year and one more year and prove it deal, prove it deal, prove it deal, prove it deal. Well, how many times is Trey Hendrickson going to prove that he's an elite pass rusher in the NFL? Back-to-back seasons he just had of 17.5 sacks. And in NFL history, that has only happened twice. Two other players have had back-to-back seasons of 17.5 sacks. Trey Hendrickson's one of them. And the other two, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know these names, J.J. Watt and Reggie White. Two of the best pass rushers in NFL history. Those are the only two other players besides Trey Hendrickson to have back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. In fact, in those back-to-back years, Trey Hendrickson obviously leads the league in sacks with 35. This is getting to a point of just pure ridiculousness. The Cincinnati Bengals, based on Sportico's new ranking of their most valuable franchises, obviously the Dallas Cowboys take the number 1 spot, and the Patriots actually drop a couple spots. So I believe number 3 or 4, I think they're hovering around the $9.8 billion. The Bengals are dead last, and you can see why. Now, it's not that the Bengals are necessarily cheap, and people are going to point over to the fact that they just spent an exorbitant amount of money on T. Higgins and on Jamar Chase, but they should have. Just like they should pay Trey Hendrickson because his production on the field has been incredible. Let's bring up the numbers here. So last 2 seasons with Hendrickson on the field, they're 8th in success percentage defensively, 11th in completion percentage allowed, EPA per attempt net 0. They're 19th in the league. Passer rating allowed 8th and pressure rate 12th. So essentially top 12 in every, major statistical category that matters. But what about the last 2 seasons with Trey Hendrickson off the field? In those same categories, dead last in everything. He has been their defense the last 2 years. In fact, those 35 sacks in the last 2 years, the next closest Bengal has 8. 35 to 8. A 27 sack difference. That's what this defense is dealing with. And in fact, it gets so bad. The defense last year, we rip on it, and rightfully so because it was that bad. Would you believe they played quarterbacks like Jacoby Brissett, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, DTR twice, Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ridder, Mason Rudolph, Cooper Rush, Will Levis, Andy Dalton, Russell Wilson twice, Bo Nix. Those are just some of the quarterbacks that they played last year. And during that 5-0 stretch to try to keep themselves alive for playoff contention, they versed Russell Wilson twice, Will Levis / Mason Rudolph, Cooper Rush, and DTR. They played no great quarterbacks during that long stretch. This season, it's a complete different story. Depending on how you rate these quarterbacks, because some people think certain quarterbacks are better than what I think, this year they played Joe Flacco, Trevor Lawrence, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Lamar Jackson twice, and Josh Allen. By the way, those are back-to-back-to-back games. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson again. That is brutal. Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray. I would say that there's a pretty decent leap from last year to this year. In fact, they were the number 1 easiest quarterback schedule last year, and now I believe they're number 10 in the difficulty category. Their positional rankings are completely out of whack. They're 31st in offensive line, 20th in running back group, front seven's ranked 25th, and that's including Trey Hendrickson. That's just how bad the rest of the unit is. 28th in secondary. They're 25th in defensive spending for 2025. We're getting to a point now where it is Joe Burrow or bust. And if that's the situation, well, throw another year of Joe Burrow's career out the window because he's going to need to play Superman again. In fact, he's the only quarterback, the only one out of 38 qualified quarterbacks since 2021 to be a top 10 in EPA success rating yards per attempt. The only quarterback top 10 in accuracy, he was number 2, and completion percentage, he was number 1. And this is with he's 35th out of 38 in play action rate, 30th out of 38 in motion. So it's really him saying hike and figuring it out. That's what this offense is set up to be. That's what this entire team is set up to be, a Joe Burrow or bust system. It's actually kind of like some of those Lamar Jackson years where he had to be the playmaker because the defense wasn't great, the wide receiver core wasn't great. In this case, it's just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase deal with it. And the defense will sort of pick up. And in fact, they tried to replace Trey Hendrickson with Shamar Stewart, but it took them 5 months to figure it out just because of a certain clause that they never added in any contract. And for some reason, they decided to do it now with Shamar Stewart. I think it's utterly ridiculous. And now we're in a situation where They finally came to a point where the years and the money is okay. Now it's all about guaranteed money because that first year is guaranteed. Trey Hendrickson wants that second year guaranteed. Give it to him. Please. They have $30 million in cap space. They could afford to sign Trey Hendrickson for a couple years. He turns 31, and I believe in December, so they're going to need to figure it out because if I'm Trey Hendrickson, as he said previously, he is willing to stick it out, hold in, hold out, until he gets paid, and rightfully so, because he has been technically the best pressure edge rusher in the NFL. Number 1 in sacks the last 2 years. I think right now he's better than Nick Bosa. I think you could argue he's better than Myles Garrett. Just because the team in totality is so bad, Joe Burrow had no real MVP contention. You make that team a 10, 11 win team and look at Joe Burrow's numbers, he's going to be much higher in the MVP conversation than he was last year. You take a look at Trey Hendrickson, and all of a sudden, you may maybe put him in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. But it's just the fact you win 9 games. 9 games with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson. Logan Wilson's not that bad either. This defense is abysmal. This defense is going to continuously be abysmal if they don't figure it out. Myles Murphy, their 2023 draft pick, hasn't really shown up yet. So the Bengals desperately have to figure this out. And we're going to talk about it later. What teams are under the most pressure in the NFL? There's a couple here, and we talked about this not too long ago. And actually, we're going to come back to it because a number of these teams we discussed when we did this conversation a few months ago. And I think one of them, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show, it's the next topic. I'm not going to go to it quite yet, but Anthony Richardson, we said he was under a lot of pressure. Well, he got benched. He's now QB2 behind Danny Dimes, which I've been on basically from the beginning, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. The Bengals are in trouble. They're in a very difficult division with Aaron Rodgers now a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cleveland Browns, they're a complete mess. They now are starting Joe Flacco. They have a quarterback situation that now they're thinking about keeping all 4 quarterbacks. What? That's the Cleveland Browns. I already bet them for the season under. I think their over-under is 4.5. Bet the under because their quarterback situation is a complete mess. It's the same argument I had last year with the Las Vegas Raiders. If you have multiple quarterbacks, you have 0. And right now there's a competition between who's QB2. Joe Flacco's quarterback 1. He did fine. He kept the Browns alive when they were dealing with their quarterback debacle when Deshaun Watson was dealing with his situation. And he led them to the playoffs, averaging like 300 yards a game. Did lose to C.J. Stroud in that playoff game. But still, this defense the Browns have is very good. Very, very good. The Cincinnati Bengals, and especially early on, and I'm not going to say Joe Burrow's completely just not at fault for anything. Early on, he's terrible. Luckily, he starts off week 1 against the Browns, although you might be able to say he hasn't had a lot of success against the Cleveland Browns, shockingly. So we could be looking at a loss there because they are away at Cleveland. Then they're home against Jacksonville. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is worth $55 million. They have a brand new head coach. Brian Thomas Jr. looks incredible. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are in deep, deep trouble. Their over-under's 9.5 wins. I want to say over. I think they can get to double-digit wins. But this defense scares the hell out of me. Because in the preseason, they were giving up big-time runs. Now, they won the game, but against the Washington Commanders, they were giving up massive runs in that game. I'm a little bit concerned. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.